David, thanks so much for being here today, man. It was awesome, so much fun. Kicking off the series, we had a couple questions come in, so we want to make sure we address those. The first one that came in was just basically a simple question about the Scripture, because they were kind of curious. There was not a lot of Scripture, like a normal situation with the 4 points of the reject passivity and the stuff from Robert E. Lewis. Can you give them the references to what that is? And and the biblical references for that.
Where the Scripture would be for those?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
or just where you can find it, for sure. Yeah.
So Robert Lewis, Raising a Modern Day Knight, I think may be the name of the book that came from.
We'll send you via text the website. I think has it too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So really, what we're looking at is it's a composite of scriptures from Genesis through Revelation.
Right.
So we look and we say, hey, what does an ungodly man look like? What are their characteristics, traits, etc. So as you do character studies on all these characters, so it's a composite there, but you see it most explicitly, obviously, in the life of Jesus.
Right.
In there. So these are just categories that he gave. And I wouldn't go so far as to say this is the only possible definition we can give.
Oh, no,
of
it's
biblical
definitely
man.
not. Right.
I would say this is a good, faithful representation of what the whole of the Scriptures teach about manhood. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I just looked at the Raising a Modern Day Knight website. There was, they had the 4 points with Scripture underneath each one, so you can even get a quick reference to it. That obviously wasn't the goal this morning, and I appreciate the fact that we didn't really, obviously sometimes we don't have time to do all of that as a book would or something like that. We definitely trust his ministry, and you referenced him a couple times, so that's really where we're getting the phrasing. However, even go back to Genesis. What was it, Genesis 2? Genesis 3. You go back to Genesis 3 and even the passage you read from Matthew, and you can just park there for a little while and look at who Jesus was versus what Adam looked like. And so that works out. The second question that came in was, how can men emulate the humility of Christ without feeling that they're being passive? In our culture, the two are often equated. So the question being, we reject passivity, and yet we're going to emulate the humility of Christ, which can look passive in our culture.
Okay, so great question. So here's the difference between humility and passivity. Humility, it may be saying, hey, I recognize what needs to happen, and so I'm going to serve. I'm going to be proactive about serving in this particular way. Passivity just means I'm not going to do. I'm not going to act. I'm not going to take initiative. But taking initiative in a humble manner may be, I am taking initiative to have others flourish.
Right.
I
don't need to rush in and do this.
I may serve behind the scenes so this can be on the stage, for example, whatever it is.
Right.
So there's a zillion different ways to live humbly, but humility I would say, is even a proactive thing.
I think humility is a very proactive thing.
Passivity is more just, I'm stepping back and I'm not going to do what I know needs to be done. And I don't know if that makes sense in the question. I don't know if that even answers it. But
but I think definitely we are battling a culture where if you're not engaged, right? If you disengage, then it's passive. And some of our teaching, which is a lot about the humility of Christ, is that we are not to be this, again, like you said earlier, we're not going to bulldoze our way through something and get our way like most people would assume, intentionality looks like. But you can be intentionally humble, which I think is a very proactive thing, and basically say, this is a fight that I'm not fighting because of these reasons.
Yes.
This is something I'm not going to bulldoze my way through because I don't have to.
Yes.
I don't have to bulldoze my way through this. I can stand the ground that I believe Jesus called me to stand on, and I can allow Him to take care of the outcome that needs to be there. So I think I'm with you. Humility is a very, in terms of, I believe, the emulating Christ humility is a very proactive stance. And if you're struggling with someone being humble but looking passive, there might be a fine line there, and it may just be something that the Spirit has to kind of give you discernment on. So cool. Well, thank you guys for asking those questions. I'm sure we'll have more come in, and appreciate David being here, and we'll look forward to catching you next week. Thanks, guys.